Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, it's the word of the day. You know, we've got a way to do this. Senator Marshall and I, along with 18 of our Senate colleagues, including Senator Cortez Masto, Senator Smith, Senator Fetterman, Senator Warnock, Senator Butler, who are here right now and on the Senate Banking Committee, have a bill that would do exactly what law enforcement asks. It would extend the anti-money laundering rules that banks follow so that crypto could not be used for financing terrorist attacks or North Korea's nuclear program. When it comes to banking policy, I am not usually holding hands with the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar banks, but this is a matter of national security. Terrorists, drug traffickers, and rogue nations should be barred from using crypto for their dangerous activities. It's time for Congress to act. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Daines, Montana's recognized. Chairman, thank you. Thanks to all of our panelists being here today. Early this year, we saw a series of bank failures, which were among the largest in our nation's history. These failures, in my opinion, were gross mismanagement by bank executives, and regulators who were also asleep at the wheel. Instead of holding accountable those in supervisory positions responsible for missing the pandemic crisis, regulators have decided to put forth a host of regulations that would have done nothing to prevent the failures in the first place. In fact, every regulator I have questioned this year, hearings like this, has confirmed what we all know to be true. That is, the U.S. banking system is strong, it's well capitalized. The proposals put forth by Vice Chair Barr and other regulators will limit economic growth, reduce lending to small businesses, and for those who are able to obtain financing, they're going to see increased costs. You know, I have frequent meetings with my businesses across Montana. We are a state noted for small businesses. I hear from them firsthand about the critical need for access to capital, the concern they have with pending regulations that could threaten their businesses. I questioned Vice Chair Barr before this very committee about risk weighting and public listing requirements in the Basel III Endgame proposal. Astonishingly, he claimed that small businesses would be better off under the proposed scheme than they are now, despite the fact that less than 1/10 of 1% of businesses are publicly listed and would qualify for the lower risk weighting. Mr. Diamond, could you speak to how the Basel III Endgame proposal would impact your ability to lend critical funds to small business, and what trickle-down effects we might expect if this were to be implemented?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Senator. I mean, first off, these questions shouldn't wait for the NPR coming out. They should have been answered way before. It's very complex. The work should have been done. The details should have been shared. Directly, it makes those loans, we either have to charge more, and I have a lot of unintended consequences. You know, as you know, we open in Bozeman and Billings. We have to charge more locally just to make sure we get our return on cost of capital. Secondarily, like the operational risk capital will increase the cost of simply holding a small business checking account or making a loan. And so all these things are cumulative effect. It'll also affect our ability to finance your local community banks, which we often do, your local affordable housing, or the Montana pension plan. So all these things will trickle through. They'll all become more expensive, and there'll be some other unintended consequences. One thing is moving out of banking, but also how we deal with customers. So I think some people will reprice, some people may drop a few customers. It also may lead to more concentration in certain ways because you have to get more revenues from the client to justify the loan.
Mr. Diamond, thank you. Mr. Sharp, do you have any comments or thoughts on that?
I agree with what Mr. Diamond said.
Thank you. I want to shift it to the issue of oil and gas investment. In this last year and a half since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, February 27th, I've had the opportunity to travel extensively throughout Europe, where I met with leaders in basically all the countries of the border, particularly on the west side, been the Baltics and also the Balkans, as well as Ukraine border countries. One thing I've heard is really universal is that they've let the whims of the day dictate their energy policy and moved too quickly away from reliable baseload forms of energy like natural gas, coal, hydropower, and nuclear was struck when I was in Vilnius. They took me out to their LNG facility. By the way, when that regasification, they're these floating ships, which is parked there, it's fittingly called the Independence, as this LNG really has been key. It's coming often from the United States to get Europe back on its feet to a certain extent as well as the energy. But I asked these folks who were running the LNG plant, what did you do before you were making LNG? And I had a background in chemical engineering. I was kind of curious about process and who these people are. He said, well, we used to run a nuclear plant. So what do you mean you used to run it? He says, we used to supply 70% of Lithuania's electricity through a nuclear plant. But in 2009, it was shut down. So why was it shut down? It says, as a condition of joining the EU, they made him shut it down, and Lithuania went from being a net energy exporter to an energy importer. And this is just a warning thing for all of us. You can't let the whim of the moment, some particular segment of a green movement at that time was very anti-nuclear. And to their credit, it was an old Russian design, Chernobyl type reactor that needed to be changed over. But they were. Hitachi was going to build a new Japanese state-of-the-art reactor, shut the whole thing down. And they're paying a severe price for it. The need for fossil fuels is not going to dissipate in the near term. I'm very concerned the Biden administration has an all-out assault on the oil and gas industry in the United States to further their green fantasy and hallucination. We can do this the safest and the most environmentally sound way, to have a balanced energy portfolio that includes, of course, renewables and the exciting future we have in the transition, but we better make sure we think about expanding our portfolio